I have always known since I was little. Love comes with conditions. I could feel, even as a child, the difference when my mother's eyes were on my sister Kristen instead of me, when her smile was directed at me compared to when it was not. There were differences in kindness, interest, and pride. "Jennifer, you are strong, so you'll be fine." That was my mother's standard phrase. Strong. Mature. She used those words to keep me in a distance and justify treating only Kristen as special. But after 28 years of life, I finally realized. True family isn't just about blood relations. What makes a family are the bonds formed from love, respect, and understanding. This is the story of my journey to find my true family. When I was 3 years old, my parents got divorced. In my memory, my father and mother were always arguing. It was a fragmented scene, but I vividly remember their voices filled with anger and sadness. "Jennifer, your father and I can't live together anymore," my mother said. "But I will always be with you." That promise quickly faded. She took me back to her parents' house. And there, she met Richard, who would become my stepfather. At first, he was kind to me, but after my mother moved out over my grandmother's objections, I, as a child, had a bad feeling. Soon after my mother got remarried, my sister Kristen was born, and my premonition proved right. Everything about our life changed. Kristen's birth. It was a turning point in our family's history. "Look, Jennifer," my mother showed baby Kristen to me. "This is your sister. Isn't she beautiful?" Indeed, she was beautiful. Blonde fuzz and blue eyes, the same color as Richard's. I will never forget the expression that appeared on Richard's face at that moment. It was filled with pure joy and pride, an expression he never showed when looking at me. "Perfect," he murmured. "Our daughter is perfect." Our daughter. Even as a child, I felt something was off about that phrase. I intuitively understood that I was not included in our. For weeks, I became a forgotten presence. My mother and Richard were all about Kristen. "Mom is busy right now," I was told day after day. Kristen's feeding time, Kristen's bath time, Kristen's bedtime. Everything revolved around Kristen. As the new family structure formed, my place gradually shifted to the periphery. In the eyes of my mother and Richard, Kristen was always the center of the family. She was doll-like, with golden hair and blue eyes. I had black hair and brown eyes. Not resembling my stepfather further distanced me from the family circle. On my 6th birthday, my mother bought a small cake, but there was no party. The reason was that Kristen had caught a cold. My present was a single book. However, a few months later, Kristen's first birthday was filled with balloons and gifts throughout the house. "You're big enough now that you don't need this kind of thing," my mother told me. Yet, my heart was hurt. I had become like an accessory to my sister. In the family drama where Kristen was the star, I was a silent supporting character. But there was a slight glimmer in my life. The only one who truly saw my existence was my real father, George. Even after the divorce, he continued to be involved with me. He coordinated with my grandmother to meet me secretly, and he would attend school events that my mother never attended. I vividly remember the morning I met my father secretly in the park when I was 9 years old. We sat on a bench, and he bought me ice cream. "It's a secret from Mom," he winked. "Why don't you come to see me?" I asked. His eyes clouded with sadness. "Your mother won't let me. But I promise, Jennifer. I'll be by your side as much as I can." "Mom and Richard are always about Kristen," I blurted out. "They don't care about me." My father hugged my shoulder. "You are a special child, Jennifer." My father said. "Never doubt your own worth." His words became a small flame planted deep within my heart, warming me from the inside for many years. From middle school, I found my place in academics. Studying became my refuge, and immersing myself in textbooks allowed me to forget the loneliness at home. There, I was special. I boasted the best grades in class and was recognized by the teachers. In high school, I began to dream of leaving home. While looking at university posters on the classroom walls, I imagined the free world that lay beyond. I wanted to earn a scholarship to a prestigious university and start a new life. One evening at dinner, I mustered the courage to share my plans with my family. University. My mother frowned upon hearing my dream. Where is the money for that? Richard is saving up for Kristen's future. Community college should be enough for you. Kristen was only 12, but a special account had already been set up for her future. Kristen has talent, my mother often said. She will surely become an artist. But I've been working hard too, I weakly argued. Richard scoffed. Good grades alone won't get you through life, he said. Be realistic. I nodded silently. I knew arguing was futile. That night, alone in my room, I cried under the starry sky as I felt my future dreams collapsing. When I met with my father over the weekend, I told him about my dream of going to the university, about wanting to study literature and history, my longing for campus life, and the reaction of my mother and Richard. He listened silently. Then, with a serious expression, he said, "You should go to university." But, the money. Don't worry, he said. I'll figure something out. I wanted to believe his words, but my father was not wealthy. After the divorce, he ran a small bookstore and led a modest life. I couldn't see how he could afford the tuition for university. In my final year of high school, I studied desperately to win a scholarship. I managed to secure a partial scholarship, but it wasn't enough to cover everything. Amidst my disappointment, I was close to giving up on my dream of attending university. One day, close to graduation, my father took me to a quiet cafe. There, he handed me an envelope. "Jennifer, this is for you." Inside was enough money for me to attend a prestigious university for 4 years. A small note was also included. "For your dreams. I'm proud of you." "Dad, how did you?" I gasped. He smiled and explained. He had been working 2 jobs for many years, saving up for my sake. In addition to the bookstore, he had worked as a taxi driver at night. Why go to such lengths? As I asked tearfully, my father smiled gently. "You have potential. You need a place to let it blossom." Tiredness was visible in his eyes, but it was overshadowed by his strong affection. At that moment, I felt my father's unconditional love. He had made sacrifices for my happiness without seeking anything in return. When I returned home, I told my mother and Richard about my decision to go to university. They were surprised and displeased. "How will you get the money?" my mother asked. "Dad will help me," I answered, and her face clouded over. "George. That man can't afford it. He's been saving up for years. For me." My mother's expression hardened, and Richard snorted. "He's just putting on airs. You'll be let down in the end." Their words only strengthened my resolve. For the first time, I made my own decision and left home. That was the turning point in my life. On the day I entered university, only my father was there to see me off. My mother and Richard did not come, citing Kristen's dance recital as the reason. But that was no longer a pain for me. I was filled with the joy of new beginnings. "Dad, thank you," I said as I hugged him. "Live your own life, Jennifer. And call me sometimes," he replied. We laughed together. At that moment, I realized. A true parent isn't just someone who is there. It's someone who believes in me. At university, I discovered myself for the first time. I studied literature and history, and my world expanded. I worked part-time in the library while dedicating myself to my studies. That's where I met Patrick. He always visited the library. He came at the same time every day, borrowing books about environmental issues. I was gradually drawn to his genuine passion and warm smile. "You want to know about me?" Patrick asked with a slight embarrassment when I first asked him out on a date. "I'm a garbage collector," he said. I was momentarily surprised, but quickly smiled. "So?" I replied. Patrick seemed relieved by my reaction. Most people are put off by it. But I'm proud of my job. "I'm making the environment cleaner every day," he said. I was captivated by his frankness and pride. Patrick's family was just as warm and welcoming as he was. His parents hugged me every time I visited, and his siblings teased him while treating me as a member of the family right away. The time I spent at Patrick's house gave me a sense of family for the first time. There was no conditional love there, just pure acceptance. Even after graduating from university and finding a job, Patrick and I continued to respect each other. It turned out Patrick was not just a garbage collector. He was managing a waste collection company he had taken over from his father. He developed an environmentally friendly waste management system, and his business was growing rapidly. "We are taking an innovative approach in the recycling sector," he explained to me. "We've developed a method to recycle or compost 90% of the waste." I was impressed by his passion and innovation. He lived by his beliefs, not by appearances or titles. That was one of the reasons I was drawn to him. He was sincere, hardworking, and loved all of me. He always listened to me and supported me. When I introduced him to my father, they hit it off right away. "He's a good man," my father later told me. "His eyes are full of love for you." Around that time, my sister Kristen got engaged. She was 20 years old. Her fiancé was an investment banker, from a good family, and my mother and Richard were thrilled. "Our daughter's wedding will be the celebration of the century," my mother proudly declared, hiring an expensive wedding planner immediately. Kristen's wedding was lavish and splendid. Hundreds of guests, a reception at a luxury hotel, a designer wedding dress. Everything was perfect. My mother and Richard spared no expense to celebrate the special day of their real daughter. 3 years later, on a rainy night, Patrick invited me to dinner. After serving a homemade meal at his apartment, he knelt down and took out a small box. "Jennifer, I want to walk through life with you," he said. "Will you marry me?" I answered, yes, through tears. At that moment, my heart was filled with joy. However, our engagement news was not received the same way as Kristen's had been. A few days later, I visited my parents' house for the first time in 3 years to tell them the news. It was my first visit since Kristen's wedding. The house had not changed, but I had. I was no longer a frightened girl, but a woman confident in her own life. My mother and Richard were sitting in the living room. I took a deep breath and shared the news of my engagement. "A garbage collector?" My mother's voice contained clear disdain. Her face twisted with surprise and disgust. "You're marrying someone like that? He's a wonderful person, Mom," I said. "He runs his own company. It's an environmentally conscious business." "No matter how you dress it up," Richard interrupted. "Ultimately, it's a job that deals with other people's trash," Richard said. His words hurt me, but I tried to remain calm. "He's a wonderful person," I repeated. "You would see if you met him." However, neither my mother nor Richard was even willing to meet him. In their minds, my engagement was a disgrace and tarnished the family's honor. My mother reached out to look at the engagement ring I was holding. She scoffed at the small diamond. "Is this your worth?" she said. "My daughter is satisfied with such a cheap thing." I pulled my hand back. "This is a symbol of love, Mom. It's not about the size." "Love?" My mother laughed. "You can't live on love alone." "You're wrong," I said. "Love is the most valuable thing to me." My mother's expression turned as cold as ice. "We will not attend the wedding," she declared. "I have no intention of showing my face at such a modest gathering of losers." Those words were the last straw. I stood up silently and walked toward the door. "Jennifer." My mother called out. "Come back. We're not done talking." I turned around. "No, we are done. If you're not coming, that's fine. I have people who truly love me." As I closed the door, I held back my tears. My heart ached, but at the same time, it felt like the final trial in my life. That night, I called my father. I told him about my engagement and the reaction of my mother and Richard. "Don't worry about it," he said. "They have always tried to impose their values on you. But you have the right to choose your own path." That weekend, my father came to my apartment to meet Patrick. He brought a homemade apple pie and was warmly receptive to both me and Patrick. They talked enthusiastically about environmental issues and books, bonding like old friends. As the night drew on, my father placed his hand on Patrick's shoulder and said, "Please take good care of Jennifer." "Yes, I promise," Patrick assured him. As my father shook hands with Patrick, my eyes welled up with happy tears. Before my father left, I asked him, "Dad, do you truly bless our marriage?" He looked at me earnestly. "Does he make you happy?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "Then that's all that matters," he said. "My wish is your happiness." His words healed the wounds left by my mother's cold rejection. My real father had shown what a true parent looks like. It was an unconditional love, a love that prioritizes a child's happiness. Our wedding preparations proceeded with the help of my father, Patrick's family, and our close friends. It was modest but filled with love. And Patrick had a surprise. He was actually acquainted with Paul McCartney, whom he had been a fan of since his youth and who supported his environmental activities. As a surprise for me, he invited Paul to our wedding. On our wedding day, when a black car pulled up at the church entrance and Paul McCartney himself stepped out, all the guests gasped. He played a special song for us. That wonderful moment transformed our modest wedding into an unforgettable celebration. My father proudly walked me down the aisle, and Patrick's family tearfully watched our vows. In a space filled with love and joy, I truly felt surrounded by family for the first time. A few days after the wedding, I uploaded a photo on social media. The picture showed Patrick and I holding hands on the beach, with Paul McCartney standing next to us. The caption read, "Best day of my life. With my true family." Hours later, my phone started ringing. It was a furious call from my mother and an intimidating message from Richard. They were enraged by my post. "You shameless person." My mother shouted over the phone. "What do you think everyone will say when they see your photo with Paul McCartney, making your wedding seem more lavish than Kristen's?" I answered calmly. "Paul is Patrick's friend. He just came to our wedding." "You are mocking us," she said. "Delete that post right now." "No," I replied. "This is a record of my happy day, my memories." My mother's voice became ice cold. "If you don't change your attitude, you will lose your inheritance." I laughed. "Mom, I didn't think you had anything left for me. But don't worry. I don't need money. I have true love." With that, I hung up the phone. That evening, as Patrick and I were preparing dinner, the doorbell rang incessantly. We looked at each other before I opened the door to find my mother and Richard standing there, faces full of anger. "Let us in," my mother commanded. I stepped aside and led them into the living room. Patrick came out of the kitchen and stood by my side, giving me strength. "Delete that post," Richard demanded. "Now." "Why?" I asked. "It's a memory of my happy day." "You are embarrassing us," my mother screamed. "Everyone knows how wonderful your sister's wedding was, but Paul McCartney at your modest wedding ruined everything." "Mom," I said quietly. "This isn't a competition. I am happy. That's all." "You have always been jealous," she accused. "Always envious of your sister. Now you're doing this to upset us." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I've felt sidelined since I was a child. You've always prioritized Kristen. My dreams, my hopes, my life, they were never important to you." "Don't be ridiculous," she retorted. "We gave you everything." "It was Dad who gave me everything," I said. "If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have gone to university. You saved all the funds for Kristen." Richard's face turned red. "Enough about your father. He was hardly present in your life." "That's not true," I replied. "He was always there, quietly, without you noticing. He supported and believed in me, something you never did." My mother threatened in a menacing tone. "Fine. Being acquainted with Paul McCartney means he's not just a garbage collector, is he?" she said with a sinister smile. "If you don't want to be disinherited, you better give us some benefit. Then we can forget about this. We raised you, after all. Just help us out with some living expenses, that's all." Holding Patrick's hand, feeling his warmth, I answered, "Mom, I have nothing to give you, and I don't want anything from you. Not money, not fake approval. I have a real family now. Patrick and his family, and Dad. They love me unconditionally." My mother's face twisted. "Are you cutting ties with your family? You will regret this." "No, I won't," I said. "I have no regrets. This is my life, my choice. And I am happy." Richard glared at me. "You're ungrateful. Have you forgotten everything we've done for you?" "Patrick, can you ask them to leave?" I said. Patrick spoke calmly but firmly. "I think it's best if you both leave now. As Jennifer said, this is our home, our life." Though my mother and Richard were furious, they no longer had the power to control me. As they stormed out, I felt a true sense of liberation for the first time. Several weeks after the confrontation with my mother and Richard, I received a message from Kristen. "Can we talk for a bit?" We decided to meet at a small cafe. Kristen seemed more composed than before. "I'm sorry," she said. "I always knew how Mom and Richard were treating you, but I never said anything. I was afraid of losing their love." "I understand," I replied. "Their love is conditional." "You are brave," Kristen smiled. "I want to be as strong as you." We talked for a long time about past hurts and the possibility of a new relationship. While a complete repair would take time, it was the first step toward building a new bond as sisters. My relationship with my mother and Richard remained cold, but it was also a relief for me. Free from their control, I was able to fully accept myself for the first time. Meanwhile, my relationship with my father deepened. He was always on my side and remained an important part of my family. Patrick's parents also welcomed me as a daughter, and for the first time, I lived in an environment filled with unconditional love. A year after the wedding, I was building a stable and happy life with Patrick. His company was successful as a pioneer in environmentally friendly waste management, and our life was fulfilling. One day, an unexpected phone call shook my peaceful days. It was from Kristen. Her voice trembled. "Jennifer, it's serious," she said as she cried. "Mom and Dad have gone bankrupt." I gasped. "What do you mean?" Kristen started to explain. For years, they had maintained a lifestyle beyond their means to keep up appearances, luxurious homes, expensive cars, lavish vacations. They had also continued to invest heavily in Kristen's education and hobbies like ballet and piano. Private schools, summer camps abroad, tuition for a prestigious art university. "Mom always wanted to give me the best," Kristen said. But in reality, it was far beyond their income. At Kristen's wedding 4 years ago, they had spent an amount equivalent to a house mortgage. However, they did not change their lifestyle and continued living lavishly. Debts piled up, credit card payments became impossible, and their house was foreclosed. They had lost their home and were temporarily staying with friends. "They can't ask anyone for help. Their pride won't allow it," Kristen said. "But I can't support them alone. My husband is fed up with their wasteful habits." I was overwhelmed with complex emotions. For years, they had rejected and scorned me. But now, they needed help. "Let me think about it," I replied. That night, I had a long discussion with Patrick. He said he would respect my decision. A few days later, I mustered the courage to visit where my mother and Richard were staying. I was shocked to see them. My once proud mother looked tired and aged, dressed in simple clothes instead of luxury brands. Richard was similarly subdued. There were no traces of their once luxurious life around them. "Jennifer," my mother said in surprise. "I heard you're in trouble," I said quietly. My mother looked away. "Did Kristen tell you?" Her voice was a mix of embarrassment and anger. "We're fine," Richard blustered. "We'll bounce back soon." "That's good to hear," I said. "But if you need anything, we can help." At those words, tears appeared in my mother's eyes. "Why?" she whispered. "We've been terrible to you." "Yes," I acknowledged. "But living with hatred is tiring. Besides," I chose my words carefully, "you're part of my past." That night, we had a long conversation about past wounds and future possibilities. We didn't reach a full reconciliation, but we made a step toward understanding. Patrick and I offered them temporary housing in an apartment owned by his company. I also suggested a job for Richard in the back office of Patrick's waste management company. "A job in waste collection industry," Richard said bitterly. But he had no other choice. He accepted the offer and began working earnestly at Patrick's company, while my mother adapted to a simpler life. Their material losses might have brought about some spiritual growth. There's no such thing as a perfect family. We all get hurt, make mistakes, and learn. Helping my mother and Richard wasn't just for them, it was for me as well. By letting go of anger and hatred, I found true freedom. Not bound by blood, but connected by heart. Bound not by force, but by choice. And sometimes, relationships are reborn through forgiveness. My life journey began with a lack of love but became filled with an abundance of it. And I learned that family isn't necessarily about where you are born, but where you are most valued.